Say it.
Hello everybody and welcome to the GamePunx bonus round. My name is Ryan.
My name is Ben.
And on this episode we will be talking about fun licensed games that we enjoy. This is kind of our second attempt at recording this episode, because the first time, I think we mentioned it on an episode of GamePunx, but the first time we tried doing this, Ben unfortunately lost.
Control-Z'd instead of Control-S'd.
Which is quite the error.
A fatal error.
It's all good. In the end, we can just redo it. It's a bonus round. And maybe we can get it even better this time. Maybe we'll be a little more brief.
Yeah.
No way. We got you. Not a chance.
So I guess we can just start off. I guess I'll go first. The first game that I have to talk about is one that we have in common, so we can both comment on it. But a very good licensed game that I actually quite enjoy is a game for the 3DS that I picked up, I think the same year I got my 3DS, which is about 2012. Now, at the time, I think the only games that I had for it were Star Fox 64 3D and Ocarina of Time 3D.
Oh yeah, they did remake Star Fox.
The library was kind of limited when the 3DS came out, and by the time I got it, it was a little bigger. So I had kind of stocked up on some of the early essentials, and then one of the first games I got afterwards was a little game called Adventure Time, Hey Ice King, Why'd You Steal Our Garbage? So yeah, this was like the third ever game I ever got for my 3DS. And it's a pretty interesting game in that it's an Adventure Time game. If you don't know, Adventure Time is a fairly influential cartoon that began airing on Cartoon Network in the late 2000s. And it kind of ushered in a new generation of like really popular serialized animated television.
Yeah, the pacing and episode structure.
It is a hugely influential cartoon, and it's like a lot of the people who worked on it ended up going off to work on other things. Like Rebecca Sugar, for instance, went on to create Steven Universe, and so many other people, just to name like one in particular. But so Adventure Time, Hey Ice King, Why'd You Steal Our Garbage is a 2D side-scrolling action-adventure game. It's developed by WayForward, who, if you don't know who they are, they're the Shantae folks. And they have quite a bit of pedigree now, but at the time they were just kind of starting to come into their own. They had released a bunch of games on DSiWare that had been popular, like Mutant Mudds and Mighty Switch Force. But they were kind of starting to branch out and bring back Shantae, and they brought her back, and that became very successful for them.
Yeah.
Because, that's like, it's crazy how much Shantae has, I don't know, risen in people's esteem since like the original game came out in 2002?
Yeah, a true Phoenix
Game Boy?
On the Game Boy Color. I have the Nintendo Power that focuses on the Shantae, actually. I think it's still at my grandparents'.
Literally one of like the latest releases for the Game Boy Color.
Fun fact, actually, I remember having that Nintendo Power and like constantly just reading through the Shantae section because it looked like such a good game, but I never actually got to play the Game Boy Color Shantae.
Really?
Yeah, I knew a bunch about it because it was like it was a Nintendo Power, right? So it went pretty deep in like tips and like story stuff. So like I read it a bunch. I don't remember much about it now though, but I never actually ended up finding a copy. So yeah.
I mean, there we go.
It's a MacGuffin in my my list to finish games.
Well, anyway, Hey Ice King, Why'd You Steal Our Garbage is an interesting game. It's a Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link clone, and I'd say that's pretty appropriate in terms of just kind of how that game plays and kind of the fitting in with the vibe of Adventure Time, because Adventure Time is a series that is kind of heavily based in like 80s and 90s nostalgia for like tabletop gaming and for early video games, like NES kind of era stuff. Yep. And it's, I think, super appropriate that like the first major Adventure Time game released is a direct tribute to some of the stuff that influenced it. It's not a very long game.
It is not, unfortunately.
I think it, if you play it and sit down, will take you 3-4 hours at tops.
That
That might even be a bit generous.
I think maybe a little bit longer.
Really?
Was there a difficulty setting?
I don't believe there were. Not in my recollection.
Yeah, I don't recall there being.
I mean, it was not an easy game either. It actually could get pretty difficult at times, but the length of the game itself is rather truncated, which is fine because it kind of plays out like a silly episode of the show, or maybe a silly 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah.
But so like Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, the player travels around the field from a top-down perspective, and there's kind of 4 different kingdoms that you explore: the Grasslands, the Candy Kingdom, the Ice Kingdom, and Red Rock Pass. And Finn kind of has his basic attack. Like he has his sword, and he has a bunch of kind of other moves that are very, very Link-like. And then Jake, Finn's dog companion, best friend, and brother, kind of transforms into a bunch of different stuff for you to use because he's a magic dog who can morph his body into different shapes. And so he kind of can turn into a bridge or a dinghy or a parasail. He can generate a shield with his ear to cover you for block attacks. He's got like a wiggly arm punch, which is very cute.
Yeah, that animation is really adorable, actually.
The graphics of this game in general are very pretty. I mean, like most WayForward games, it looks very nice, and it's super colorful and has a lot of character.
This is the thing that's going to come back, because I'm going to talk about a couple more Adventure Time games, but this is I think, best looking Adventure Time games. The pixel art they went with really lends itself amazingly to
it's beautiful.
Time.
And it has aged remarkably well, given that it came out in 2012. And it still looks very, very good to me now.
I think we said it on the last episode, but pixel art always looks good. It's forever golden content.
Yeah. And another notable thing, I guess, before I move on, the composer for this game was Jake Kaufman, who, if you don't know who he is, I mean, he composed for a lot of games for WayForward, but maybe his most notable, I guess, compositions would be the soundtrack to Shovel Knight.
Yes.
So if you kind of know the vibe of his stuff, you can tell sonically what this game is like.
Yeah.
There's a lot of beautiful chiptune work combined with traditional instrumentation and just like a touch of vocalization too to add atmosphere to certain tracks.
Yeah.
Which is really, really interesting. It's a nice little soundtrack. It's like, once again, not a very long game. But if you ever see Hey Ice King, Why'd You Steal Our Garbage, pick it up if it's on sale. It's worth at least the $10 you'd pay for.
I'd even say go for the collector's edition if you do find it. I don't think it goes for that much, and it's like just a neat little. The Enchiridion, I think, is the like case for it. It's just like a metal casing. It comes with the game, and probably I think. Like an a world map or something. I think
it comes with a map of the overworld
and
in the style of like an old Nintendo Power poster.
Yeah, and like it's just a really cute
it's nice.
Collector's edition.
I remember when I saw that after I bought the game and I was like,
it comes with a Finn's sword too, I believe, as the a stylus.
Oh, that's
I think
cute.
it was that
yeah,
one.
and alternatively, I'm pretty sure it's still available on the 3DS eShop if you're shopping around on there.
It is. That's where I got it, and it's pretty cheap. I think I got it for $10 on the eShop or something like that.
It is absolutely worth the $10.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but if you're a fan of Adventure Time or even just like a fan of fun old retro style 2D like games, I highly recommend Adventure Time, Hey Ice King, Why'd You Steal Our Garbage? So that's my number one, and I guess we can move on to some of your other Adventure Time games.
Yeah, I'm going to hit a couple, but it'll just kind of be bunched up. I'm going to try to keep it brief. We already talked about the best Adventure Time game. So, which one should I go with first? I guess I'll go with it's not technically a direct sequel, but if you're going with the inspirations, it would be a direct sequel, and that would be Adventure Time and the Mystery of the Nameless Kingdom, or something like that. Something Nameless Kingdom. I can't remember the title because all the Adventure Time games have very long-winded titles.
It's the Secret of the Nameless Kingdom.
Yes,
there we
the
go.
Secret. The Secret.
Which
of
is
the Nameless Kingdom.
It's also developed by WayForward. and it's also available on, amongst other things, the 3DS, but also on Windows. It was on the PS3, on the Vita, and on the 360. It was pretty much on every major platform sans the Wii U at the time.
Yeah, and it is basically a Link to the Past clone. It's unfortunately not as good as Link to the Past.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a high bar to clear, especially for a licensed title.
It's unfortunately not as good as a lot of other video games that came out on the DS. I'd say it's not even a good game, which is unfortunate because I was very excited when I saw it was going to be Link to the Past For this, they, for some reason, went with more 3D-ish models. They're kind of not great looking. They also decided to do voice acting, which is kind of cool, because Finn and Jake, I believe, are voice acted by the actual voice actors. But then you get the weird thing where they're like, all right, we blew our voice acting budget on Finn and Jake, so now we gotta get sound-alikes for all the other characters, so it's just kind of jarring.
The way they circumnavigated that in Hey Ice King was just having sound clips play over red dialogue, text, which was pretty good. So you just had sound bites, and they could just be bites from the show.
Exactly. And gameplay-wise, it's just kind of... It tries to be Link to the Past and like a Metroidvania. You kind of looking for your next upgrade to move on to the next section, but it's very it's not intuitive at all. For one of the things, Cinnamon Roll is fucking hanging out on a bridge, and he won't let you get past. And you're like, what? Okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I actually had to look up a YouTube guide and go...
Looking up a YouTube guide for a licensed game.
Yeah, I had to go
definitely
across the map to get a bag, and then had to go to another part of the map to pick up a fart to then throw at Cinnabon, I think is his name, actually.
That's a little esoteric.
So yeah, it's just... and the whole game's filled with shit like that, where it's it's not super
intuitive,
straightforward. It's kind of too...
It strings you along with kind of I guess esoteric.
It's like playing Zelda
solving.
1.
Yeah, okay, where it's everything is a secret that has to be uncovered.
Yeah,
and it's just a lot of error trying to get that done. Okay,
and that in a modern game is a little
exactly what you're talking about.
Frustrating, especially one that is supposed to be mostly child friendly.
Yeah, and I feel like in a game that's a tribute to A Link to the Past specifically, that's not even that accurate a throwback, because A Link to the Past is rarely
it's pretty
as kind of intentionally mysterious as especially the first and second Zelda games. And even Hey Ice King, even though it's emulating the gameplay of Adventure of Link, doesn't contain any of that kind of esoteric trading quest kind of bullshit.
No, you always kind of know where you have to go.
That makes it kind of... Yeah, exactly. It's not a difficult game to figure out. I mean, it's an Adventure Time game. It has to be good for children.
Yeah.
You know?
And, but I mean, the thing that I will say is neat is, the first, not the first level, but the first, when you wake up and Link to the Past and you have to go to the castle, castle is kind of the outside at least is pretty much a 1-for-1 recreation of the castle. The secret fall down pit is in the same spot, I believe, if I recall correctly.
It's kind of cute.
Yeah, and then once you fall down the pit, Jake is like, haha, I was in your pocket the whole time. And you can use me as a shield now. So it's just kind of like when you find your dad and he's like, here's the shield, son.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like a bunch of little neat references like that. But unfortunately, the gameplay is super frustrating. And but it could have been such a good game, which is why I think it's one of my favorites.
It's a very pretty looking game.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't hold up as good. I find the model quality is a little... I don't like the weird... Because if you look at the walking animation that Finn has, it's just... It feels wrong.
It is a little odd to see Finn from that top-down angle.
Yeah.
I feel like the Adventure Time characters are not really designed to be viewed from an over-the-shoulder or overhead angle.
No.
Like, they're really meant to be seen front-on as, like, an animated cartoon.
Yeah.
Which is why The Adventure of Link works so well, because there is a side-scrolling kind of vibe to that game.
Yeah.
Versus, the other Zeldas, which are a top-down perspective or a full-on kind of 3D.
And I feel like they could have made it work, but it just, it kind of fell flat. But it's still one of my favorite Adventure Time games, because not a lot of them are super good.
Yeah, the other two that I remember are Pirates of the Enchiridion and Explore the Dungeon Because I Don't Know.
Yeah, there's Pirates of the, there's a couple more, I think. There's Explore the Dungeon Because I Don't Know, which was also another DS game, I believe, and it also came out on consoles, but
that one is multi-platform.
Yeah, much less popularity. I remember actually Explore the Dungeon Because I Don't Know, there was a joke made that Sony got super mad about because I think it was Way Forward or someone was like, oh, we're not putting it on the Vita because and it was like some kind of joke at the expense of the Vita, being like, put it on the Vita, why? Because I don't know, or who owns a Vita or something. Like, it was some stupid joke, and Sony was like, wow.
Oh, they don't like it when you make fun of
what
the
the hell,
Vita.
Man. Don't make fun of the Vita. It's a good console. I don't have one, but...
Please don't make fun of the Vita, bro. Please, bro.
Please just...
I swear it's good,
bro.
Please. That's
Freedom
pretty
War,
funny,
bro.
I gotta say. In the realm of things to get upset about, even Sony abandoned the Vita.
Yeah.
So.
We have Gravity Rush, bro. We have Gravity Rush.
Bro, we promised Gravity Rush and Soul Sacrifice, bro. I promise.
Freedom
bro.
Wars. It's like Monster
really
Hunter,
funny. But not as good. Not even as good as the PSP Monster Hunter games.
No.
But that's pretty funny. Yeah, is Explore the Dungeon Because I Don't Know the one that's kind of like a roguelike?
Yeah, it's a roguelike. It's kind of Enter the Gungeon ish.
Ah, okay.
Where you hit certain
like
levels and then you can go back to that level of the dungeon.
The
game is
a
too
shooty,
big.
Binding of Isaac type deal.
Yeah, it depends who you're using. I always use Marceline because she could just hover over pits, and I was like, cool, I don't have to.
Wow,
think
that's
about that.
fucking cheap. That's just the game's easy mode.
Yeah, and she hits super hard. She's kind of slow though, which was her downside.
Okay.
And like, yeah, all the characters had little like things like that, and I think you unlocked characters the deeper you went.
Okay.
The ending of that game is funny. I think I said it last time, but you figure out, I guess, Princess Bubblegum's parents, if I remember correctly, are the end game, and it's strange. Especially for how long that game is. I don't remember how many levels, but I remember Googling it at one point and I was like, oh boy. Oh no. This game isn't good enough for it to be that long.
Oh boy, that's a little rough. And then Pirates of the Enchiridion.
Pirates of the Enchiridion came out on Xbox Live Gold, I think, which is why I own it. So I got it for free. I haven't gotten super deep into it, but it's reminiscent of Wind Waker, which gives me hope for it. I'll probably talk about it once I play a little bit of it, but it seems okay from what I did play. I played like 15 minutes. The combat seems solid enough. It is awkward because it's a 3D Adventure Time game, and they're all awkward looking and feeling, kind of. But the other one is Finn and Jake's investigation thing, which is a Ace Attorney-like Professor Layton ripoff, I think.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, that's the one that's kind of like a Professor Layton game.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of different puzzles kind of bundled in with a light mystery.
Yeah. And,
I remember that one.
Yeah. That one I remember getting stuck at some point because I just couldn't figure out the puzzle, and I was like, eh. So
yeah, fuck that.
Fortunately, Adventure Time, amazing show. Bad rap when it comes to video game adaptations, which is
except for Hey Ice King.
Except for Ice King, yes. Ice King is a genuinely
really,
good game,
really good little game,
and the best one.
I think it's the one that Way Forward put the most of their work into.
Yeah, if you're if you're itching for some Adventure Time video game and you don't know which one to get, GamePunx happily endorses Hey Ice King, why'd you steal our garbage?
And CN TV shows in general have kind of a mixed reputation when it comes to games, but I think lately the game output has been a little better.
That Samurai Jack game came out.
The Samurai Jack game came out. It's like a character action game.
It looks pretty solid.
It looks pretty solid. It also looks like visually pretty nice.
I was super
kind of like
impressed.
a very good 3D recreation of the aesthetic from the show.
I was super impressed with the bug enemies because that's all I saw was just the super generic bug enemies, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, yeah, no, that looks like what the show would look like if it was 3D.
Yeah, it looks
or
really,
like
really
what
good.
it should look like. It doesn't look half-assed or anything.
And then there was the Steven Universe game and the OKKO game that came out recently. I got them bundled on the Switch. Game? Yeah, well, there was one called, I think, Protect the Light on iOS, and it's kind of like an iOS RPG.
Mm-hmm.
And then Save the Light, its sequel, came out on the Switch and on other consoles, and that game is like a Paper Mario-esque game. It looks like Paper Mario and plays kind of like Paper Mario. And I really like that a lot. I have it and I enjoy it. Towards the end of the game, there's a lot of technical issues, but for the most part, it's really, really fun little kind of 2D, 3D RPG in the style of like a Paper Mario. And then the OKKO game is even better, and that game actually has codes that you can look through the episodes of OKKO for and put them in to get new playable characters, but that game has like a hand-drawn cell animation style, and it's really beautiful. It's kind of like a 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up / a kind of a like little adventure game where you just go around the bodega fighting robots, and it's really cute.
Nice.
I really enjoy that game. So yeah, the CN games as of late have been pretty good. Do you want to go with your next game?
Yeah. Staying on the CN games, I guess this isn't technically a CN game. You know what? No, I'm gonna save that one for last. I'm gonna save that one for last because it's the one I'm most excited to talk about. So it'll be the most long-winded. The next game I'm gonna talk about is a little game called The Simpsons Hit and Run.
Now this is a game that even I, as somebody who is like actually kind of not allowed to watch The Simpsons when they were a kid, this is a game that I knew all about.
It is the best GTA clone, which isn't saying much, but
I mean, yeah, it is. I can't think of a better GTA style game.
It was a good enough GTA clone that I think Vivendi got into a little bit of trouble over it with Rockstar, if I remember. Because I know Hit and Run, Sega definitely was like, hey, this is some Crazy Taxi bullshit.
Oh yeah,
you're not allowed to do Crazy Taxi
when they saw Hit and
bullshit.
Run was basically just Crazy Taxi reskinned with Springfield.
Yeah,
they got kind of mad about that. I remember hearing about how.
And I think I remember hearing a story about how Hit and Run also kind of got some hot water, but I think a little bit less. I think it was settled like fairly quickly. I believe I might be misremembering. I don't want to spread false information, but I'm pretty sure. Anyway, it's a pretty solid...
sorry, Road Rage. Road Rage is the Crazy Taxi
yes.
One.
Wait,
Road
no.
Rage.
Did I say Hit and Run? Hit and Run is the one I'm talking about right now. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Hit and Run is the one we're talking about now that is a GTA clone.
Yes.
Road Rage is the one that is Crazy Taxi.
Yes.
So before you type that comment, I corrected us.
There we go.
But
take that.
Yeah, Hit and Run is a game that like had a lot of esteem amongst people that I know. Actually, it was like all the people that I know who were into The Simpsons and that were like allowed to watch The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Were especially at that age were like really into this game, and they were like, "Oh, it's super fun!" And it's like
it's super
if you
fun.
like The Simpsons, it's like you're going around Springfield and shit.
It's charming. Every character has their own little like section of Springfield. Like I think Bart's is like the industrial part. You can go to Moe's and shit. Homer obviously is like the more main part, like near the house. You can like drive through the nuclear plant and stuff. Lisa's was I can't remember. I think there's like some weird goofy stuff where like you start getting to Treehouse of Terror
Treehouse
type
of Horror.
Treehouse of Horror type stuff where like the aliens come down too.
Oh, King
and like
and
things
Kodos.
get wild. Yeah,
That's fun.
yeah, it's just a fun little little game. It's mission based, obviously, to progress. There's side missions and stuff to make more Springfield bucks or whatever. All voice acted by the actual voice acters.
That's something that I feel like a lot of the Simpsons games later on have like in common.
Yeah,
where from like the really bad 2006 one,
the movie,
that's
the
like
game,
hyper expensive but also dog shit.
Yeah,
and what's that Road Rage, which is good but also has all the voices.
Yeah,
but like Simpsons Wrestling, I think also had them. That game is hot garbage. That's an N64 and PS1 game.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say I didn't even know that existed.
That game sucks. I mean, the best Simpsons games, apart from like the original Konami arcade brawler one, are probably Road Rage and Hit and Run, and they're the ones that are held to the highest esteem, I'd say. And I want to feel like maybe this is hyperbolic, or maybe this is me kind of misjudging how people feel about this game, but you know how like a lot of people hold SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom to a pretty high pedigree?
Yeah.
I feel like Hit and Run is held to a similar level of esteem, where it's like, this was a good licensed game that really put you into the world of the show that it's based on. Like, just in the way that it envisions and like makes that locale into a place where a game could happen.
Yeah,
it's
and
really
like,
successful.
If Vivendi was still around, and there was a remake of this, I'm not sure who the license holder is now. I mean, even the THQ that made this too.
Well, THQ Nordic.
Oh no, this wasn't
obviously.
THQ. It was Radical. Sorry.
Oh, Radical.
Radical and Vivendi.
Radical are pretty good.
Yeah. But yeah, this is a game that if it got a remake today would sell like hotcakes.
I think a lot of people, at least as good as the SpongeBob remake, which is like not actually a good game.
Yeah. But I mean, it would just sell. It would just sell.
It would. I think so.
I would buy it again.
I would actually buy it just for the sake of playing it.
I mean,
as long as it wasn't like a really compromised remake, the way that the SpongeBob game is.
Yeah,
where like even the hit detection is off and shit.
Yeah.
Like, how do you have bad hit detection in a fucking SpongeBob game?
Because you rushed out a remake for a quick buck.
Really fucking they didn't rehydrate that shit. It still feels dry as hell.
It's dehydrated.
Dehydrated edition. How is the remaster of like an old 3D game the worst version of it? They fucked that one up really bad. Anyway, that's another conversation entirely. But yeah, Hit and Run. I guess you have a lot of fond memories of it.
I do, actually. My friends who I would go hang out with all the time when I lived in Tennessee, this was one of our most played games. Like, there's one of the Virtua Fighters. I can't remember which one. There's Ty the Tasmanian Tiger also.
Oh shit, I'm so sorry.
I know. And like the Sly Cooper series, I think that was like a really big one too.
From the worst mascot platformer of that generation to one of the better ones.
Yeah, exactly.
The degrees, you didn't have very discriminating tastes, I guess, at that age.
I mean, they just, like, it was when your parents bought the video games and you're like, cool, new video game. We're going to play this for 50 hours.
I have a buddy who has a Ty the Tasmanian Tiger game, and I've always been curious to try it out, just because I know they're legendarily mediocre and try-hard, kind of like Crash wannabes. I obviously have nostalgia goggles for it. I haven't played it since, so I'm not going to comment and say, no, it's good. But I have fond memories of Ty and his Tasmanian tigerdom and his Australian accent and his dumbass boomerang. It's like, that feels like a game that's like 2 decades removed from like the Australia craze. that we went through in like the late 80s, early 90s. It feels like a relic of that just came way too late.
I see you've played Knifey Spoony before.
Yeah, that's straight up what it really feels like, the Bart versus Australia of games, but like way late. But that's like, speaking of Simpsons references.
I'll have your biggest beer. Bigger. Oh, I guess it's pretty big. Fucking love that episode.
That's a really good episode. But and then at the end they destroy Australia.
They destroy
by ruining its ecosystem with frogs.
And by bringing a koala back to Springfield, which they never touched
God.
upon. Because it probably fell off on his way.
Probably fell off into the frickin' ocean and died. But yeah, I mean, circling back around, Hit and Run, good Simpsons game. They could remake it.
They could. Looking at you, Vivendi,
poking
a corpse.
I guess I'll hit from, the realm. Let's stray away from like TV games here and go into licensed games based on toys.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be more asking questions on this part because this is a domain that I know sweet nothing about. Okay,
so if anybody follows me on social media, they know I'm a huge Bionicle fan. I retweet and on Tumblr reblog a bunch of Bionicle stuff. I frequently troll the Bionicle Reddit for people's creations and stuff like that, and I'm a part of I don't know how many like Bionicle themed pages on Facebook. But I am a bit of a Bionicle obsessive. I've been a fan since I was a little kid. It's kind of the thing that got me into collecting comics, because the first ever comic I ever got was the first issue of the Bionicle DC comic. So I'm something of a fan of Bionicle, and Bionicle was pretty big. It's if you're not familiar with what it is a toy line that Lego launched sometime in I think it was in the year 2001 when it came out, maybe even 2000. I think it was 2001. And
rough year.
It's it kind of came at a really important time in Lego the company's history, because they were kind of starting to hit a downturn in sales and they were going bankrupt, and they tried their hand at this little experimental toy line called Bionicle. And the whole idea was there are 6 elemental heroes, and they're built out of the Lego Technic pieces, so the stuff that has like holes and pins, and it was kind of like for more advanced builders. And they were 6 elemental heroes represented by 6 different colored action figures that were built out of these pieces that lived on this island called Matanui. It was a tropical island in the middle of this endless ocean. And this island is being besieged by an evil force called Makuta. And that's just kind of the most basic description of the plot, because Bionicle has a hyper-complex, continuous, serialized story that goes from 2001 to 2010. So it was like a decade of storytelling and characters and world building, and it was like not just toys, but video games, 4 direct-to-DVD animated movies, and a bunch of like online serialized prose stories written by the guy who would become the story editor for the series and creator, as well as novels, like little published paperbacks
I was about to say,
that you could get
novels?
at like Scholastic.
Sure. Yeah,
I have all of them.
Yes, of course you do.
All of them.
So are you telling me that Bionicles was Lego's Final Fantasy?
Yeah, kind of, actually. It's the closest Lego has ever gotten to doing something like really, really un-Lego-like with like a popular line of theirs.
Yeah, and getting like super successful as the last ace in the hole to not go bankrupt.
Yeah, and anyway, Bionicle, saved their asses from bankruptcy. And Lego was trying so much shit at the time, throwing shit at the wall. There was this thing called like Clickets, which are like these weird like things targeted towards girls that didn't look or feel like Lego. And there's a lot of people in the Lego community, the greater Lego community, who still kind of don't really see Bionicle as very Lego-like. But I think Bionicle is a great Lego theme. Was revived actually by Lego in 2015. And it lasted until 2016.
Yeah, that was the show, right?
There was a show on Netflix.
Yeah.
But it wasn't very good. The toy line was, actually, in my opinion, I thought it was great, but a lot of people have mixed feelings on it. But, Bionicle has been like a kind of a constant thing in my life that I've always loved. And so, of course, I played all the video games. I didn't own all of them, but I've played each of them at least once, with the exception of one of them, which I own but have not played yet. But the game I want to talk about is called Bionicle Heroes. So Bionicle Heroes came out in the year 2006. It was developed by Traveler's Tales, and it was released on most of the major home consoles with a couple of portable versions and a PC version. And this game was a 3D third-person shooter, and it followed the 2006 storyline for the toys very loosely, but featured the characters from that era of the toy line.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so the premise of this game, following kind of the basic premise of that part of the story, is that a group of new Toa, who are the 6 elemental heroes, arrive on an island that was invaded by these creatures called Piraka, or a group of creatures called the Piraka, who are part of another species called the Skakdi, but that's deep Bionicle lore that I won't go into. And the Piraka are a group of thugs, bounty hunters, and merciless thieves and killers who basically got to this island before any heroes could, said that they were the Toa heroes that were coming to save this island, and then proceeded to enslave the island's population and destroy it and strip mine it and like rid it of its resources in an effort to locate a treasure hidden on the island called the Mask of Life.
Video games are political.
Exactly. And this is just the story of the toy line. The game, like I said, follows the story loosely in that you play as one of the 6 Toa you can choose. Each one embodies one of the 6 primary elements of the Bionicle universe, which are fire, water, stone, air, ice, and earth. And yes, stone and earth are not the same thing, and ice and water are not the same thing. And there are definitely very, very like detailed descriptions of why they're not the same thing, but I won't go into them. You can just look that up for yourself. But yeah, needless to say, you play as one of these 6 elemental heroes, and the goal of the game is to make your way through each of the Piraka's domains and kind of go through these different stages of these domains in which you fight kind of enemies that have invaded these places, whether or not they're quarries, jungles, river kind of sides, old temples, a volcano, all of these kind of things that you would think fit in with those elemental kind of areas, and rid them of the Piraka's influence. And then at the end of each, I guess, area that you're in, you fight the Piraka. And then when you beat the Piraka, who is kind of the boss of that area of the game, you have to fight the 7th Piraka, who is named Vizon, who is like super evil and rides on this giant spider called Fenrak and has a spear, and his face is like fused with the Mask of Life.
Sigma?
So yeah, he's kind of awesome. Vizon is cool. I really love that character. He's just like the edgiest, most like 2006 ass like antagonist you could have for a children's toy line.
How does the game play? Is it like character action?
This game
or
it's a third-person shooter.
Okay.
It has an over-the-shoulder perspective, and each Toa has an upgradable weapon, and the weapon is like usually a projectile weapon of some sort, even though they don't all look like projectile weapons. But some of them fire off blasts of energy, some of them are more like rifles, and some of them are kind of like grenade launchers, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
But they're all projectiles, and they're all elemental projectiles, so it's not like they're firing bullets. It's usually blasts of elemental energy, or if the grenade launcher one is like exploding rocks that fly from like a claw. Interesting kind of stuff. Yeah, kind of different. Kind of different.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, the aim on that one, not so good if I recall.
Well, yeah, that seems like it would be high power, low accuracy.
Mm-hmm. That is kind of the vibe it has. But it's a very fun game, if a little bit simple. It is made for children, after all, as children are the primary demographic that Bionicle is targeted towards. So of course it's a little easy. It's also, a Lego game. And it's a Lego game from that time, like most Traveler's Tales games. So even though it doesn't play exactly like something like Lego Star Wars or Lego Indiana Jones or whatever, it carries over some of the elements, so like collectible studs and kits that you can build off to the side that give you kind of little bonus content to goof around with, including like little bonus videos of the Paraka like riding on swing sets and shit like that, which is really funny because it's super unfitting of them because they're all evil greasy bastards.
Yeah, that's the animators having free time and just having
just like rendering goofy little videos with really them riding like a Bionicle swing set.
Because that means they probably had a really good time making that game.
I think this game was made by people who are having fun. But yeah, in my opinion, of all the Bionicle video games, Bionicle Heroes is the one that kind of holds up the most as like a good game. There was one that infamously never made it through its full development cycle and was canceled that was actually eventually remade, and there's like a team working on it now to finish the game because most of the code was like salvaged and all the parts that were never built are being constructed. There's like a great video by Liam Robertson, who does game history secrets on YouTube about the development of that game and like the people trying to revive it. I believe they're called Lightstone Studios, which is a name that references a thing from Bionicle.
Yeah.
But there was a bunch of other games. Like I have a Game Boy game called Bionicle: The Mask of Light, based on the 2002 storyline, and it's
that's a platformer, right?
It's a bad isometric 3D kind of like rendered platformer for the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah,
it sucks.
I think
it's
my
really
friend
not
had
good.
that, and I remember seeing it and being like, "Yeah."
It's full of that esoteric old game bullshit where it's like you have no idea where you're going or what to do.
Yeah.
It's not a very good. It's rather difficult for a children's game. Not a good game. There's the other versions of Mask of Light for other platforms, which I have the GameCube one. I should say the version of Heroes that I've been talking about, by the way, on GameCube, because that was my console at the time. But it's also for PS2, Xbox 360, whatever. But yeah, that is a game that I haven't played, I haven't touched, but I own it. I will play it eventually, and maybe I'll talk about it on another, future episode of this podcast. But yeah, most of them are not very good, needless to say. But this one in particular, even though it's not remarkable, stands out to me as something that was memorable and fun at the time. I would rent it from the video game store, or not the video game store, but the video store all the time. And I would like take it out like, a couple of weekends in. I did beat it after like 2 or 3 weeks of renting it, but I would play it like all day. I'd start playing it like 6 in the morning and I'd only be done playing it like, 7 at night. But I actually really love this game, and when I finally purchased it for myself just a couple of months ago in Toronto at ANC Games, I don't know, I got a little sentimental, and I popped it in, and I had a really good time.
Sometimes you gotta hit that nostalgia itch.
Yeah, it was nice. I don't know, it actually, just thinking about it's kind of like choking me up a little bit, because it's like I really like this game, and it reminds me of a really great time in my childhood, a simpler time in my childhood where I could just enjoy things indiscriminately.
Well, I mean, that's how I feel about Kingdom Hearts 1. That's a game that I go back to at least once a year.
Yeah.
It's,
It holds a lot of nostalgic value to me.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And yeah, so Bionicle Heroes, if you want to play a Bionicle game,
that's the one.
That's the one that you should play. And then maybe check out that really great one that the guys at Lightstone Studios are working on, as well as there's another fan game coming out, and I can't quite remember what it's called, but it's completely from the ground up game made by fans, and it's like a massive 3D open world Bionicle game set during the period of like the 2001 story, which is like the most classic, iconic era for the toy line and story.
Mm-hmm.
That looks like a lot of fun, and I can't wait to play it. And I, for the life of me, wish I could remember what it was called and who was making it. But it's really something. It's quite cool. So yeah, that's a game that I really love, that I hold near and dear to me. Yeah, I guess you can move on to your next one there.
Yeah, I'll move on, and I actually switched it up.
Okay.
I switched to one, so I have 2 more games to talk about. The last one's still going to be the last one, but
all right. What's this one?
This one is going to be does the Arkham Knight or Arkham Asylum game count?
Those are licensed games.
That's a licensed game.
Them.
Okay, perfect.
You like Arkham Asylum?
Oh man, that game, because Okay, there's what was it? My mother got me this game, I believe, around a Christmas.
Okay.
And being in a low income family, obviously, I think, when did this game come out? Hold on, I gotta Google this real quick.
Arkham Asylum?
Because I need to get a referential date for this. I believe it was
Arkham Asylum came out in 2009.
2009. Do you know the day though? Like, or
the
month?
Day?
Just a month, I guess.
It actually came out in August, so towards the end
August.
of the summer.
Towards the end of the summer. So yeah, no, I must have got it around October then. So it wasn't even for Christmas. I think she just randomly got it for me. It was something weird because I remember, the normal thing was I would get video games for Christmas and my birthday because we were like, we didn't have a lot of money, so it was on special occasions or whatever. But I remember the trailer played in the Dark Knight DVD, I think.
Yeah, which is another 2009 movie.
Yeah, and I was like, yo, this game... Mom, look at this game.
That was the big movie of the summer in 2009.
Yeah, it was.
The Dark Knight, yeah.
And
so it was the perfect time to put out a Batman game.
Exactly. I don't think it was coincidental, but...
no, it absolutely was synchronous marketing, for sure.
But yeah, I remember just like rewatching that trailer over and over again. I was like, Mom, look at this shit. Oh my, look at this video game. It's a Batman video game. It looks sick. And she's like, oh my god, that does look sick.
And that's cool that your mom thought it looked rad. Too.
Yeah, no, she was like, oh, whoa, I haven't seen anything look this good since like Resident Evil 3 or whatever, because,
dope.
She's old. But yeah, no, she's like, wow, okay, nice. And like I got home from school one day and she's like, did the Terry Bogard, here you go, kid. And like I was like, what? And like immediately hopped on, was playing that game every day until I beat it. For like, sorry, this is a cat related incident. You okay? Okay. It's okay. Yeah, so
Pumpkin is being silly.
Pumpkin may have attacked a human by accident. She's okay though. But yeah, I played the hell out of that game every day. And I remember, I think the reason I want to talk about the most is because Arkham Asylum has the most effective jump scare I have ever seen in a video game to date.
Oh yeah?
Yes. I don't. Are you familiar with it?
Before you get there, to preface for everybody who's not familiar with the Batman Arkham series, the Batman Arkham games are a bunch of third-person action-adventure beat-em-up games that came out kind of during the late 2000s, early 2010s for a bunch of different consoles, but mostly PS3 and Xbox.
Xbox 360, yeah.
And they're like the benchmark of good licensed games. Anybody will tell you that. They're all very well developed, and the first one, Arkham Asylum, is actually it's the strongest one in the series, and it's based on maybe one of the most famous and like highly regarded Batman comics of all time, which is Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum: A Serious House on Serious Earth.
Yeah,
which was written by Grant Morrison and illustrated by Dave McKean, who is like a mixed media artist whose work is like some of the most like stunning and haunting surrealist imagery you can ever find in fantasy artwork. But that graphic novel is like a particular vibe, and the visual design of Arkham Asylum apes a lot of elements, and like the abstracted kind of fucked up designs for everything in Arkham Asylum come almost directly from McKean's artwork.
Yeah,
and a little bit of Neil Adams thrown in there too, and maybe a bit of Frank Miller. But it's like the hyper abstracted, surreal, almost dreamy kind of fucked up proportions of everything, cartoony but kind of
like hyper realistic cartoony. I'd say it's gothic cartoon.
It looks like a graphic novel in motion when you look. It's a very good looking game, and
it was the best superhero game since Spider-Man 2.
Oh yeah,
which I think
without
was
a doubt in my mind.
The highest marking of it too was that was unanimous. Was like
the best superhero game that wasn't a fighting game like MVC. Spider-Man 2, Arkham Asylum, for the time, those were like the height of quality.
Yeah, because they're
very good games.
X-Men games were not
Well, the X-Men Legends games are like...
Yeah, that's the one. Those are the ones.
They're a little different. They're like top-down RPGs. Like
it's super fun.
Batman,
in my opinion,
Batman Arkham Asylum is not quite the same thing.
Absolutely
you don't feel like you're inhabiting the world of the X-Men. You feel like you kind of just feel like you're playing the X-Men in a video game. Batman Arkham Asylum makes you fucking feel like that.
And
it makes you feel like you are in Arkham.
You get super immersed. It's really cool, and like sound design, visually, obviously amazing.
There's a bit of a Metroidvania energy to it too.
There is, which is really nice.
Because you're revisiting a lot of this interconnected, like hyper complex design version of Arkham,
and especially after you beat the game and you have to find those fucking Riddler trophies.
Oh, the Riddler rooms, yeah. Those are hard. Some of them are hard.
Some of them are insanely hard. But good game. Sorry, I just kind of assumed everyone knew Arkham Asylum because of
the Arkham
everything
games
we just said.
they're not something that I think was on everybody's radar until maybe Arkham City. Like Arkham City was the one where I feel like a lot of people knew about it, but Arkham Asylum came out and it was a hit and people really liked it. And I think a lot of Batman fans and comic fans in particular thought it was great. But I think Arkham City is really where even though it's a lesser game in mine and your opinion, is where like a lot of people started paying attention. And Arkham Knight kind of blew out on all stops as like this hugely high budgeted game with like a lot of shit. And there was Arkham Origins too, which I actually really like, but some people don't. I think
Arkham Origins came out super busted on the PC, and they never really fixed it. None of the
Arkham games are notable for good PC ports.
Warner Brothers kind of.
They're not developers who make PC games.
Yeah.
So their ports for the PC, they're not very well.
They're not good. I think they're also outsourced to people who don't.
I remember when Arkham Knight came out. That was a travesty.
I think it might have been Arkham Knight that I'm thinking about. Where like there's just texture flickering everywhere and screen tearing. It was just, and like QA teams came out and they're like, this is what we played. Yeah, this was the first build we played.
This game was developed by Rocksteady, who have gone on to make, apart from the other Arkham games, the newly announced Suicide Squad video game, which
I'm excited for.
It looks like it could be a lot of fun.
Yep.
And WB Montreal did Arkham Origins, and they're working on another Batman game that's unrelated called Gotham Knights. But this series was like it's kind of a big deal now. Like a lot of people hold it in high regard, and Arkham Asylum is where it all started. So let's talk about that jump scare, because I think I know which one you're talking about.
I think you do too. I think anyone who's played the game knows what I'm talking about, and I don't want to. If you haven't played the game, I highly suggest playing this game. It's a very good game, and it's not super long. It's really good up until the last boss fight. The last boss fight, I think, is the most disappointing.
The last boss fight is the lowest point of the game, which is kind of shit to say.
But I remember beating that game and feeling a bittersweet. Like, oh yeah, I beat it, but really
not quite the trajectory narratively that you want.
Because the whole game is super strong, and then you just get thrown into the most immersion breaking boss fight I think I've ever seen.
It's the most like kind of tacked on.
It's
final
like,
boss you could imagine.
A
Batman game, especially with. Like I feel like the Arkham games are notable for their pretty inventive and fun boss fights.
Yeah, I mean every other boss fight up until then is amazing, and then it's just like
the Scarecrow fight is really something else.
I mean,
and the Mr. Freeze fight in Arkham City.
Arkham City's like really good too.
But
that's the thing. The last boss of Arkham Asylum is just you're in this really immersive video game where all the boss fights feel super immersive still, and then you get tossed into the last boss fight, and it's like, hey, you're playing a video game. This is the most video game thing to happen since Donkey Kong.
And I'll spoil it. I'll spoil it now because I'm sure at this point, like people maybe don't care.
Yeah, probably.
But the final boss of Arkham Asylum is the Joker, but all jacked up on Bane's Venom serum. So it's just buff Joker.
Yeah, and then he just kind of throws
like
barrels
shit.
At you, kind of, or you
It's
have to throw
literally
barrels
like
at him.
fucking Donkey Kong, dude.
It's ridiculous.
It's really immersion breaking, and it's not good. It's like the lowest point in a very good game. Otherwise,
and going from the least immersive part of the game to probably the most, or no, I guess it is pretty immersion breaking also, but it's immersion breaking in the greatest way.
In the best way possible. Yeah.
I wish streaming was more popular when this game came out, so that there was mega compilation videos of everyone freaking the fuck out when they hit this part. So about, I'd say, a little over the halfway point. Maybe, no, a little before the halfway point, I think, is when it happens. Because it's the first Scarecrow encounter. You're kind of, walking around the lab. You get sprayed with some gas. And you're like, and then you walk through a hallway, and then suddenly, the fine folk at Rocksteady decided to throw in the gaming world's best jump scare, in which static comes across your TV and it flicks to black after just TV distortion. Like it feels like your console either exploded or your TV died or the power went out.
This is like a big MGS style fucking.
Yeah, it was
the meta immersion.
It was insanity, and I remember just being like, "No!" And then you put the controller down. And you're like, "What? Oh god, the game's back. What's happening? We're in the Scarecrow level." And you're like, "Oh my god, they did it! These madmen.
Yeah,
they did the best thing in video." And like. That it's so marking that it's the thing I think besides from the Killer Croc fight, because that fight is just scary because I have like a fear of things under the water.
Oh, okay. Well,
so
that's a particular Ben beastie.
Yeah, the Killer Croc fight is burnt into my memory just because I remember being like the whole time.
It was a traumatic experience.
Yeah, essentially. That's the other part of the game that is burned into my mind. Is just that first Scarecrow encounter when the gas starts taking effect, and it kind of happens again a couple of times. You get gassed again and have to fight Scarecrow again, but they don't hit the they don't do it again, which is nice too, because it doesn't make it overplayed. It's just this one instance in the game, and it's like, it's so good. It's so good that people still talk about it today, and it's so good that like I said, I wish streaming was more of a thing when this game came out, just so we could have the mega compilation of streamers playing it for the first time, not knowing, and being like, what?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was quite something to at the time for a game that wasn't like a Kojima game to try and do something relatively innovative.
Yeah, it was a very Kojima move
with the player's immersion and with like kind of a meta scare element.
The only
it wasn't common. Now it's like super common in gaming for somebody to kind of do something like that, especially in horror games.
Oh yeah, in horror games for sure. But it's almost expected in horror games. But even then, Kojima still does it better. PT has a couple of them that are just straight up amazing because they look like actual crashes, and then they're not, and you're like, what? Oh, like PT.
Those are pretty freaky.
Was just
PT would have been amazing.
PT would have been amazing.
Really sucks that didn't fucking happen.
We got the worst timeline.
Arkham Asylum, the other Arkham games are good. They're not bad.
I don't think they hold up to Arkham Asylum.
But Arkham Asylum
City
really, for being the first game that really makes you fucking feel like Batman.
Yeah.
That really
think
makes
Arkham
you
City
feel
went
like you are
too
in a
big.
Batman comic. Arkham City went a little... It went a little kind of away with the story, too. Kind of a little out of... I don't know, a little overambitious.
It got very Assassin's Creed-y.
Yeah, and then Arkham Knight it's full on like an Assassin's Creed game, but Batman.
Yeah.
With the addition of the Batmobile, though, which is really cool. Because the Batmobile in that game is like a tank that there's vehicle combat sections and stuff, and those are really fun.
Sorry, I forgot how to swallow for a second.
Don't worry about it. But yeah, I guess from a game that really embodies the character that it's based on to another, I have a really, really interesting one that I'd like to talk about. This is a game that I only learned about fairly recently, and it's kind of an odd game out in that it's one of those things that people just don't talk about ever. But a game that I really enjoy for the GameCube that I picked up completely on a whim was James Bond 007 Everything or Nothing for the GameCube. So this is a James Bond game, and Bond has, like, obviously a known history in games because GoldenEye is, like, one of the quintessential FPS games of its era, and, like, up there with Doom in terms of, like, how influential it is on the genre. Because a lot of people look to GoldenEye as, like, a really, really good FPS game.
Yeah.
And I'm inclined to agree, because as people who are not huge Rare fans, it's, like, maybe one of my favorite Rare games. It's really, really good. It holds up as, like, a really enjoyable FPS game, and it has, like, a legendarily good multiplayer. Like, it's the most fun, busted-ass shit ever, and it's so great. So, yeah, I mean, GoldenEye is one thing. There's a couple of other Bond games that came out for the GameCube that do the GoldenEye thing. Nightfire is a good example. It's basically just GoldenEye. But there's also the From Russia with Love game, which I understand is really good, and I'm planning to buy it one day because I'm thinking about it and I'm like, this game is really cool. And I really like From Russia with Love, the movie. It's like one of my favorite Bond movies. But James Bond 007 Everything or Nothing is interesting because it's an outlier in terms of how it plays. It's not an FPS game. This is a third-person shooter. And it's a third-person shooter with, like, elements of Hitman thrown in.
Ugh.
It's really, really interesting. So it was developed by EA Redwood Shores, who are kind of like the California guys of EA.
Yeah.
And what's really unique about this game is it kind of positions itself as like an unofficial entry into, like, the Pierce Brosnan Bond movies, where it has a full cast of actors from the movies, including, but not limited to, Brosnan himself as the model and voice of Bond, Willem Dafoe as the villain, Diavolo.
Oh yeah, big
not a
Willem.
not a JoJo reference. Heidi Klum as, like, Diavolo's, I guess, like, his affiliate, who is, like, kind of like the two-faced Bond girl of the game. Mia, who's, like, the other Bond girl, and Mia's, like, a singer who also does the theme song for the game, and it's, of course, a very Bond-styled original theme song. And then, yeah, people like Shannon Elizabeth coming in, Judi Dench returning as M, and then John Cleese as Q, and even Richard Kiel, who plays Jaws in the movies, coming in to do a cameo as Jaws. They didn't even have to get Richard Kiel to do Jaws, but they got him anyway because it's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
And they have his likeness, and they have his mocap, so it's pretty cool to see the Brosnan Bond fight Jaws, who is, like, such a Roger Moore era Bond character, who's, like, so removed from this era of the series. But yeah, James Bond Everything or Nothing. It came out in 2003. It was a multi-platform release. So the Game Boy version came out in 2003, and, like, then in North America, the 2004 for all the other consoles. But it was actually written by some screenwriters, so it has, like, a movie quality story. And in the realm of, like, being a James Bond story, it's definitely better than, like, I don't know, Die Another Day, which fucking sucks. And I'd say even a little better than some of the other later Brosnan movies. Like, I like most of the Brosnan Bond movies, but, like, this is one of the better stories of that era of Bond, which is kind of impressive. Like, right before the era where Bond completely rebooted itself and became very, like, Jason Bourne-esque.
Yeah.
This was, like, one of the benchmark Bond things, I think, like, of that time. And like I said, the gameplay is interesting. It's a third-person shooter with, like, kind of cover mechanics and a lot of action sequences, and the game is kind of hopping from sequence to sequence, kind of like a Bond movie where, you know, one sequence of events leads to you going to another place and participating in a thing there. There's variations in the gameplay and different kind of action set pieces that you take part in. The opening for the game is really cool. It's a cold open where Bond is infiltrating a facility in Tajikistan, and he goes into this kind of stronghold where these two factions who are negotiating an exchange for the Soviet bomb are pitted against each other by Bond, which you do, and you trigger a firefight between them and steal the device during the kind of gunfight that ensues and escape with it.
Such a Bond move.
It's such a Bond moment, really, and it really puts you in the shoes of Bond. And it's different from, like I said, it's different from kind of the opening piece for GoldenEye, which is the dam sequence from the movie, which is pretty immersive, but in my opinion, is not as cinematic as this, which it's, got the advantage of being a game from 2004 as opposed to a game from the mid-90s.
Yeah.
And a game that kind of is trying to do its own thing and isn't beholden to a sequence from a movie, which is also pretty interesting. But there's a really great sequence too where you're on an armored train in the desert and you fight Jaws and just a bunch of cool shit like that. There's a lot of really good driving sequences. There's a really neat sequence in a graveyard, which is really cool. And just a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool gadgets, and it really makes you feel like Bond. I don't know. Bond is one of those characters who's a quintessential power fantasy character.
Yeah.
When you play a James Bond game, the most base thing it should do is make you feel like you're playing as Bond.
Yeah.
And, all the problematic shit included. Though thankfully this game isn't actually that problematic, which is nice. It's not like the 60s Bond movies where Bond is sexually assaulting women and stuff like that. Or in the books, which he's even more of a cretin.
Yeah, even worse.
He's so much worse. He's so fucking awful in the books. He's straight up a villain, in my opinion. But yeah, it's a really, really fun game. Something else notable about the game, apart from the cool cast, is that because it was developed by EA, they used the engine for Agent Under Fire for it, which is the first-person shooter that they had made for it, but they transplant the engine into a third-person context. And
that can go really bad sometimes.
What's cool, though, is it's actually based on an id Tech open source engine.
Quake?
Yeah.
The Quake engine?
So, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, which is pretty neat, right? And then the driving incorporates elements of the engine from the Need for Speed games.
Huh.
So the driving plays very much like a Need for Speed.
That's super
Which, if you know anything about Need for
weird.
Speed, those are very good driving games.
You're going to play a driving game that's not Gran Turismo. Play Need for Speed.
Need for Speed. So those are really, really fun. And it's really great. I think it's kind of an underrated Bond game that nobody talks about, even though when it came out, it was actually really well received. And a lot of people were like, this is probably the best Bond game ever made. You got 8s and 7s all across the board, which is good for a licensed game.
Yeah.
And a lot of money was pumped into this to make it feel kind of like an unofficial Bond movie. So I think it deserves to be spoken about. And if you ever see a copy of Everything or Nothing, either for PS2 or, in my opinion, the GameCube port's actually the best version.
Yeah, we have a strong GameCube bias here. If it's on the GameCube, get it on the GameCube.
We have a GameCube bias here, but yeah, if you can find the GameCube version, that is the one that is considered the most technically superior version of the game anyway. But yeah, 007 Everything or Nothing. Really good, and hopefully in a future episode I'll get to talk about that From Russia with Love game, because I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I used to obsessively read the Nintendo Power article about it, because I was just I don't know, super in love with the idea of a Bond game with the Sean Connery Bond, which is kind of interesting.
Sean, even though smack my bitch up, that's Connery.
The most cretinous era of Bond for sure. He's the biggest, and Connery's Bond is the biggest piece of shit, just kind of like Connery.
Sometimes you just gotta smack your wife.
What?
Sean Connery?
Sean Connery?
Why,
man?
Sean
Connery is running around in his mankini from Zardoz, hitting
yeah, just smacking him. Oh,
no wonder he retired from film. Man,
that interview,
he would have not survived the Me Too era. Holy fuck!
That interview is so fucking funny because he just says it was such conviction and confidence.
And gusto.
Yeah, he's just
gusto.
Everyone, this is just Of course I'm going to hit my wife.
We're not saying beating women is funny, by the way. We're saying
we're not. It's
woefully out of touch old men are funny.
Just the way he says it is just... Like, if you go find a clip of that interview, and it's just...
It's a fucking goof, let me tell you.
It's just so ridiculously, like... It's like if I was like, oh yeah, of course we should, like, save the Earth. What do you say? Recycle. It's said with, like, that kind of conviction, and you're just like, oh my god,
exactly.
Jesus.
Like, it's like, this is a fact of life.
Yeah.
Hitting women is good, TM, Sean Connery. Connery. It's really bad. Hitting women is good. Like, he's such a
it's just kid. Also his voice, just the way it's a Sunday of
he's
problematic.
Very good at doing accents, as you know. He's definitely a good actor with lots of range.
Just
and
like
he's
my
never not, he's
just
never
like my
not
hand.
Sounded fucking ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, James Bond 007 Everything or Nothing.
Wow, you
perfectly
are perfectly
right good
now.
Bond game. Let that be your Bond fix if you want to play a Bond game that's not GoldenEye.
Yeah.
And I guess we can move on to your last one, and then we'll do my last one.
Yeah. I have the last game I have on the pile of games that I pulled out of my pile of games is Scooby-Doo, Night of 100 Frights. This game is near and dear to my heart as one of my favorite, I guess you would call it a early 2000s 3D adventure game. Kind of open world. There's like 12 levels. They're all based on actual Scooby-Doo cartoons. The back of the box says encounter 20 classic Scooby-Doo villains. I don't know how accurate that is. I don't think there's 20 bosses, but there's definitely at least the encounters. I think there's a couple of sequences where some of them will just kind of jump out at you, or they're like a common enemy, kind of thing like that. The back of the box also says "Run Scoob" for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But yeah, no, there's I remember there being like, oh god. All right, so yeah, it's a 3D platform collectathon adventure game, kind of a la Banjo-Kazooie, but it's got a Scooby-Doo skin thrown on it, so it's one of my favorite things ever made.
Which is kind of like a perfect genre to put Scooby-Doo in game-wise.
And yeah, it voice acted. It's all the people who voice acted the Scooby-Doo cartoon.
Yeah, it's like that period. I think was Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's. I'm pretty sure it's the classic cast.
I'm positive it's the classic cast because this was a.
It's most of the classic cast with it's B.J. Ward as Velma,
of course,
who is like, I don't believe she's the original Velma.
I think she was. I think she was the early 2000s Velma.
Yeah, she's the Velma of that era.
Yeah, like the
original Velma.
Zombie Island.
Yeah, was Nicole Jaffe. And she came back in, I believe, the early 2000s. But BJ Ward was kind of the mid-period Velma. It's a little bit of everybody. Then it's not quite the classic cast. So this is who it is. It's Scott Innes as Shaggy, who was, I believe, Shaggy until Matthew Lillard became Shaggy.
Yeah.
And he also does Scooby. So he's not the original Shaggy. He's actually, I think, the
second iteration.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, in Scooby-Doo and Zombie Island, which is like the first major Scooby-Doo thing after a pup named Scooby-Doo that has like all of the original people back. He is actually voiced by Billy West, like Fry and Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah.
But and you can hear it actually if you watch that movie and listen closely. You can hear that it's Billy West. He's a pretty good Shaggy. But yeah, in The Witch's Ghost, Alien Invader, Cyber Chase, onwards for like that period of the movies, he is the Shaggy.
Yeah, so
he's also the voice of Scooby.
He's my Shaggy. He's my Shaggy. He's my Scooby. Essentially,
he's the voice I most associate with Shaggy. He's also Scooby. And then Grey Delisle, or Grey Griffin as she's now known, voices Daphne. And of course Frank Welker comes in to do Fred. I mean, he's the original Fred. He's just ancient but still sounds like a somehow still managed to sound like a 20-year-old man. Like, I don't know why he still sounds so young, but he's got a magical voice, that guy. He can do, like, he does all the animal noises and shit too. He was Megatron. Crazy. That guy's got quite the voice. But, yeah, pretty good cast. It's a nice mix of old and new voice actors.
Yeah. And, yeah, like I said, gameplay wise, it's an adventure game. You're essentially trying to get the whole crew back together because you go to a mansion and surprise, surprise, you get separated from everybody except Shaggy. You play as Scooby for the whole game. I'm pretty sure. Scooby
Really?
is the whole game. Yeah, if I remember correctly. It's been a minute. But I'm pretty sure you're Scooby the whole time. Because you're running around collecting Scooby snacks. Shaggy just kind of hangs around you. Like, he's your navigator, kind of. He's your, yeah. He'll, like, give you tips and shit. The platforming actually is surprisingly super good. The music obviously holds up. It's Scooby-Doo music. And the levels are actually super inspired. Because, like... I mean, they do just have that reminiscing of old Scooby-Doo cartoons. And as a huge Scooby-Doo mark back in my younger years, I'll try to find pictures of my room in Tennessee.
But it was like a Scooby-Doo room?
Oh, dude, yeah, it was... I was the biggest Scooby-Doo mark when I was like 8, I believe was like the age range for this. But
oh
yeah,
gosh.
I would have Scooby-Doo, Zombie Island, and Witch's Ghost on repeat. Those were my going to bed movies.
Witch's Ghost is like my favorite Scooby-Doo movie. I love that movie.
I love Witch's Ghost so much.
It's got the fucking Hex Girls who are just gay icons.
I mean, we can do a whole episode about the Hex Girls.
I could do a whole episode on the Hex Girls,
we
quite
might.
All the different iterations
of
them over the years.
I was about to say they're recurring characters too, which is which
really
just makes me feel that the Scooby-Doo team listens.
Yeah, I think they kind of knew what's what with them.
Yeah.
But
wow, these girls are popular.
So yeah, Night of 100 Frights.
Yep. Good collectathon.
And
the background
in the realm of
story
Scooby-Doo games, probably the best one.
I would have to say yes. I know that Cyber Chase.
I'm sure you've played a few of them.
Cyber Chase is complete garbage. Do not do it. I mean, you know what? No, Cyber Chase is fun if you want to play a bad game. There's also oh my god, there's a Scooby-Doo game on the SNES that I'm streaming once I get the AVI capture to work again as soon as possible. Because the game is not good. The game is very bad. The gameplay is not super great. But the game over screen is the funniest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. And that's all I'm going to say for now, because I want to make it to that game over screen, take a screen cap, and like post it on Twitter. And just be like, look. Just look at it. Because it's... Obviously, the SNES was a little limited. But the game over screen is a picture of the cast, and everyone looks horrible. Just god awful.
Wonderful.
Like, you should have just put the words game over and not even tried to do pixel art of the characters, because it's just bad. And Velma especially is the most butchered, I think.
Oh god.
I remember me and Anthony actually played this almost 4 years ago now, I think. And like, we were just playing the game, we were like, wow, this is okay. And then we hit the game over screen and just laughed for like 20 minutes. And just kept staring at it. And it's one of those things, the more you stare at it, the funnier it gets. But anyway,
that's
back
the reaction
to,
you want a game to elicit.
Yeah, back to Night of 100 Frights. This is a game that, like, again, in my peak markdom of Scooby-Doo, I would make my mom bring me to Blockbuster like at least once a week, just to be like, I want the Scooby-Doo game.
Oh boy.
And I never ended up buying it until I guess about 4 years ago. I found it at a pawn shop for like $5, and I was like, I think the fuck yes. And I played the first like 3 levels and was like, yeah, it's still super good. So yeah, it holds up with nostalgia goggles probably, but I still super enjoy it. And
that's pretty cool that just there's a good Scooby-Doo game.
I know. It's almost surprising, honestly. But yeah, I think it's the best one. I can't remember any other ones like leaving as much of a mark on me.
That's I guess I should also say, since we're talking about Scooby-Doo, Rip Joe Ruby, co-creator of Scooby-Doo, passed away earlier this week. But he was, he created Ruby Spears Productions after he left Hanna-Barbera, but he was one of the co-creators of Scooby-Doo. So this is for you, Joe. You had one good game. But yeah, I guess leaving off from there, I've got one more game to talk about.
Yeah, do that.
This is kind of a series that I'm a bit of a mark for too, I guess, and I played it when I was at my peak markdom for this series. So there's my segue. It was seamless. Fuck you. Don't at me. But this game is called Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. And I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. My fandom for Indiana Jones goes super back to when I was like in elementary school, and I watched like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which is a uber problematic movie now. But I personally am a fan of the series, even with all its kind of weird colonial implications. It's the kind of action movies that appeal to me, the kind of adventure movies that appeal to me, the kind of pulpy storytelling that appeals to me. Big fan of that. But yeah, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. If you're not familiar with this game, this is a 1992 point-and-click adventure game developed by LucasArts, and much in the same vein as the other LucasArts games, it was made for the Scum engine. So this is an adventure game developed by LucasArts, kind of like Day of the Tentacle, if you've ever played Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle, or even what's that one called now? Max Kraken?
I'll take your word for it.
Zach McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders. That's what it's called.
Jesus.
Zach McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders came out in 1988.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah, and amongst other things, there was also like Sam and Max. That's also a game made with the Scum engine,
which is coming back.
Secret of Monkey Island as well.
They're making a new Sam and Max game, by the way.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah, they are. We'll talk about that next week in the podcast, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, these are the kind of games that like companies like Double Fine and stuff are now putting out. Like Tim Schafer worked on a game called Full Throttle for LucasArts. Anyway, LucasArts for a long time, they were the kings of the point-and-click adventure because they had like high-budget, beautiful digitized graphics and sound.
Yeah.
And yeah, Fate of Atlantis is a game that has been re-released and I think is still held in pretty high regard as like one of the great adventure games of the era. There was a version that had talking and a version that didn't. The CD one was the one that had talking, and the floppy one was the one that was just the game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, it's that old of a game that there was one on a floppy disk because it came out for the Amiga, the MS-DOS, and the Macintosh.
The MS-DOS.
But it was ported. It is actually ported as like a secret like feature of Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings, which is a really shitty Indiana Jones game that was made for like the PS2 and the Wii. It's like a secret hidden thing in the game. You can just play all of Fate of Atlantis. Yeah, it's like a bonus feature.
I'm gonna have to.
It's the best part of that game. Yeah, for the shitty game features a good game as an Easter egg. But yeah, Fate of Atlantis is really great. It sets itself up as kind of a story within the timeline of Indiana Jones on the eve of World War II. And it's kind of based on the 1930s Atlantis craze, which was like a thing that was big in like the people who were big into like seances and psychics and mystics at the time.
Yeah.
They were all in on the idea of Atlantis. And so this kind of plays into it by taking place in that era. And yeah, Fate of Atlantis is set in 1939, and it involves Indiana Jones getting kind of invested and stopping a Nazi plot to harness the ancient city of Atlantis' like energy source and the machine that kind of brought it down to win World War II. It's pretty interesting in that it's like mostly a full-on adventure game, like with menu navigation and like verbs and shit on it. But and like object collecting and trading and going back and forth. But what's really fun about it are the kind of different weird puzzle game type set pieces that range from easy as shit to really fucking difficult, sometimes unfair throughout the game.
I love it when games do that. Are they randomly spread out, or is it
No, they're at key points of the game, different places. But like the game is kind of following Indy as he goes from obviously country to country, like he does in the movies, collecting like research from various sites across the world that all kind of connect to Atlantis in some way, like going to an ancient Mayan city and finding out that beneath the Mayan ruins are actually the ruins of an Atlantean colony.
Yes.
And going to Iceland and finding like Atlantean kind of technology hidden kind of near a volcano, and then also like going to places that have like historically been associated with like the locations of potential like quote unquote real life Atlantises. So I mean Iceland being one of them, but also you go to Knossos in Greece, which is on the island of Crete. You also go to places like, for instance, the Azores, like the islands that are off the coast of Portugal, kind of near the mid-Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
The Azores are volcanic islands that a lot of people are like, what if they were where the real Atlantis was? They're not. Atlantis wasn't real. It was just an allegorical story made up by Plato.
No, it was
That's
real.
Besides the point. But it's pretty cool. It deals with like a lot of different kind of things in Atlantean lore. Like one of the main MacGuffins in the game that you collect are pieces of orichalcum, which is the metal that Plato said gave like Atlantis its like military might, because it was this metal that could be transmuted into energy. And like you collect these beads of pure orichalcum that are used like batteries to power up old pieces of Atlantean technology in all these ruins. Anyway, this is a really, really fun game because it's just a great point-and-click adventure with a really fun, engrossing story that plays into like a lot of the conventions of old kind of pulp fiction that you expect Indiana Jones to play into. There's a lot of cool action set pieces. Like I said, there's a thing where you're mapping stuff with a hot air balloon trying to find some ruins in Egypt. There's another bit where you're figuring out, based on the map of the city of Knossos, triangulating like the location of an Atlantean like crypt, and all this kind of cool archaeologist type shit that's really, really interesting. It plays into some of the archaeology type stuff that Indy is known for. And then the end set piece of the game is set within the actual city of Atlantis, and it's this crazy maze sequence going through this massive concentric city made out of rings that move inward and inward. And as you move in through the rings, you get into these different little Atlantean rooms that have all these little bits of lore and visual information, and just the design for Atlantis is like really
interesting,
like Giger-esque, and kind of like it's spooky and cool and weird, and
that's
this
sick.
big haunting kind of like faces everywhere, and it's kind of like underneath this undersea volcano, so there's like lava and like black lava rock everywhere making up the city. It's visually quite something, and with the game's voices put on, even though it's not like Harrison Ford or whoever, it still like sounds like Indiana Jones, and you almost feel like you're playing an indie movie. But the game was really, really big when it came out. It was like a sequel to the Indiana Jones game that was based on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, so it has like the same engine as that game. But yeah, like it's an original story. And another cool thing about it is that, and I actually find this really kind of interesting, it was adapted into like 2 separate comic series by Dark Horse.
Really?
Yeah. Both by people named Lee. And I'll explain to you how. So there are 2 separate Dark Horse comics based on this. I've read one of them, and I like the one that I read. One of them is by Lee Mars, and the other one is by somebody named Elaine Lee. So
wait, sorry, say that again. You cut out. I didn't hear.
Yeah. Okay. So one of them was, the first comic was adapted by Lee Mars.
Yeah.
And the second one was adapted by Elaine Lee.
Wow.
So, 2 separate Dark Horse comic series based on this game, both by somebody named Lee.
Oh,
I don't know, it's just a weird little fact.
Yeah,
just a weird little factoid.
It's a weird coincidence.
It's funny, but anyway, yeah, it's a cool game. It also created the character of Sophia Hapgood, who ends up becoming like a recurring character in a lot of ancillary Indiana Jones media from that point onward. She's like a supporting role in some of the novels and in some of the future games even. She's like this redhead who is like a crackpot who is like a psychic who sells like, she makes a living off of being like a fake psychic.
Ah, yes.
But the interesting thing about her is that she actually might have real psychic powers, and they kind of hinted it through. So she's like a total bullshitter who's like, you don't see it in the planets, Indy, because Indy, being a skeptic, is like, this is bullshit. I know it's bullshit. But then when you get to like Atlantis and you see like the Atlantean gods are like contacting her through psychic power, it's like Indy is like, oh, things that make you go,
less so.
So it's pretty fun and interesting, and I don't know. I really like Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. It's really fun. If you can find, I think it's kind of available on GOG. It might not be. It might be another Indiana Jones game that's there, actually. I think it is on Steam. It's on Steam.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so if you want to play this game, you can.
Let's
Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. I don't know if it's been unlisted, but really, really good game. I'm a big fan of this game, and I'm just a big fan of Indiana Jones. I guess the way that you're a mark for Scooby-Doo, I guess I'm a mark for Indy.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fucking fan of this character. I even like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls.
I just think it's weird how Indiana Jones ripped off Tomb Raider.
We can get into like the conversation about Indiana Jones being like a direct tribute to like 5 or 6 different things all at once.
Yeah.
Kind of in the way Star Wars is.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because they're both written and created by George Lucas.
Yeah.
It's just one of them is not directed by George Lucas and one of them is.
And one of them's good and one of them's...
One of them is of mixed quality.
And one of them is mixed quality.
And one of them is of mixed quality. They're both kind of interesting.
Like
but if there's one thing you need to know about... If there's one thing you need to know about George Lucas is that he loves homaging the shit that he likes in what he creates, which is why Indiana Jones is like a bunch of his favorite things all put together, and why Star Wars is a bunch of his favorite things put together.
Yeah, like Nazis and also Nazis.
I mean, yeah, both of these things feature a main character fighting against literal Nazis and basically Nazis.
Yeah.
So
space Nazis.
Either way. Gets a little iffy when he's fighting against the communists in Crystal Skull, but
yeah,
I'll take it or leave it on that one, I guess.
It's a period piece, bro.
I'm no tanky, but like I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get why that the optics on that look bad compared to literal actual fascists. So yeah, Indiana Jones: Fate of Atlantis, super good. I guess that'll wrap it up for today. This has been a bit long for a bonus round.
Yeah, accidentally longer than the first one we did.
Literally the price of the length of one of our regular episodes. Yeah. But that's besides the point. Thank you so much for listening. This was a fun conversation. There's a lot of like fun games we can revisit further on in future iterations of this segment. But
and of course, we fully recommend all these games except for Secret of the Nameless Kingdom. Don't get that game.
Goddamn.
Make Way Forward. Make a good Adventure Time game. Get that one.
There we go. They already made a good one. You don't need another one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can never have enough good games.
Yeah. But I think we have enough Adventure Time games.
I also think that, quite honestly, I'm a huge Adventure Time fan, but I don't think we need any more. I think we should have stopped at Hey Ice King. On
Adventure Time. Yeah, Hey Ice King was a good place to stop. But anyway, yeah, thank you so much. I've been Ryan. You can find me on social media at Nouveau Art Punk on basically everything. On Instagram, I'm on Twitter, and if you like to read movie reviews, I write movie reviews on Letterboxd, so you can hit me up on there. Yeah, like that's basically all I have online going on. What about you, Ben?
I have been and will probably continue to be Ben. I'm scratching silly on literally everything.
He does the streams.
Yeah, I stream Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I might cancel the night stream because it was supposed to start at 10:30, and this went a little longer than expected, and I am sleepy.
We're about 20 minutes past 10:30 now.
I'm a little sleepy, and I don't think I can play Dragon Ball FighterZ.
I can't deal with the netcode when I'm half asleep.
I can't take the netcode. I can't play with 18 frames of delay when I'm already playing with an 18 frames of delay in real life.
Real life delay.
My real life netcode has been hit by the fact that it has been a long, hard day and I am sleepy. So I can't deal with DBZ's bad netcode.
Oh god.
So I'm probably gonna cancel tonight's stream, but Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I mostly do fighting games. Mondays is usually Battle for the Grid. Wednesdays is Them's Fighting Herds, which I've been practicing my Velvet combos, and I'm starting to get to those big numbers. Hopefully I can not drop them when I play online. And Dragon Ball FighterZ is usually Friday. I like calling it Dragon Ball Fridays because it's kind of a play on the video game.
It's a play on Fighters Fridays.
Yeah, Fridays.
It sounds similar.
And I mean, Dragon Ball Z always played Friday when I lived in the States, like the new episode.
It played Friday here when I would listen to the nice ocean dub.
So it just kind of
on YTV. It was my Friday show.
The outro music should be the Canadian version of the Dragon Ball Z theme.
We already have outro music for this show.
I know, but
I will stick the intro music for DBZ Canadian at the end
because it's so good.
It is really good.
It's so good. It's the best version.
It's much better than Rock the Dragon. Rock the Dragon is stupid and overrated. But anyway, yeah, we've been GamePunx. This has been Bonus Round. These were a bunch of really good licensed games, except for some of the Adventure Time ones we talked about, that you should definitely play. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night.